Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Before we get started with this morning's briefing, there's some house cleaning that's in order. First of all, if you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, make sure that you hit the subscribe button now, as well as the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. I've been getting a number of messages lately from people who have been saying they were unsubscribed without their permission. So, of course, YouTube's being YouTube. You don't want to miss a single moment of truth, so make sure you're subscribed. Secondly, I've also gotten some messages from people who have been telling me about the scammers that show up in the comment section. I don't have a WhatsApp. I don't have a Telegram. Hell, I don't even have a Facebook. All I got is my YouTube account and my Twitter account. So when you see these stupid idiots using my logo, using my avatar, and saying, "Send me a WhatsApp, I've got some investment advice," I have never and will never tell you contact me on some WhatsApp or Telegram. Those are scammers. You've probably seen them on a lot of other people's channels, and they're here too. I don't contact people telling them, "Why don't you contact me personally for some investment advice?" or for anything else. So when you see some idiot who's going through the comment section, or somebody calls themselves responding and say, "Hey, it's Professor Black Truth. Why don't you contact me on this WhatsApp?" That's a scammer. Usually I'm able to catch most of those idiots, but YouTube being YouTube, every once in a while a handful of them might get through, so it's up to everybody to make sure that you're informed and aware. I do not have a WhatsApp, I don't have a Telegram, and no, I'm not going to send you any messages saying, "Why don't you contact me?" Now, that said, on to this morning's briefing. Since this is the beginning of New Black Media Appreciation Month, I figured that the first moment of truth for this year ought to deal with some of the old dead black media, you know the type. CNN is getting desperate. Amidst their lowest ratings in decades, they're throwing a Hail Mary. Oh, forget about Mary, this is a Hail Mary, Joseph and John. Don Lemonade has failed to turn CNN's plummeting ratings around, and neither has the racially hostile Allison Camerata. Yeah, trying to recruit some of that Fox News talent hasn't brought the Fox News viewers. And I suppose that they figured that all of those other demographics who were supposed to be a suitable substitute for black folks, they haven't materialized either. CNN's attempted to walk the fine line between being casual racists and full-blown MAGA lovers, but the right-wing audience they were hoping for hasn't shown up. And it's not like they haven't been trying. All the years of race baiting, all the white splaining, all the times that they boldly ran interference for police killing black people, all the times that they attacked reparations, all for nothing. You know, I can't believe that Jeffrey Jerkum Toobin wasn't a big draw for audiences. I mean, he's like the most trusted name in punditry, right? About the only thing lower than CNN's ratings are the IQs of the men who run the network. So now what are they doing? They're doing what the white media always does. The same thing, just more of it. They're in talks right now trying to bring in Gayle King and Charles Barkley, of all people, to do a weekly side show together. I can certainly suggest a name for it, the Bootlick Variety Hour. The same Gayle King who tried to demonize Kobe Bryant only a day after he and his daughter died. I suppose that's what made her so attractive to CNN. Gayle King, who tried and failed to play the victim after that. This woman is no kind of draw for an audience. She's just CBS's crash dummy, the clown who they get to sit in front of a camera and attack black people, specifically black men, and cover for anti-black racism. And as for Charles Barkley, his self-hating reputation is so well known that he's become a meme. He's a joke, and not a very funny one. He's made a second career after the NBA by becoming a bottom-feeding, buck-dancing Uncle Tom sellout, spouting his goofy right-wing talking points on cable TV and any other white media outlet dumb enough to give him FaceTime. And you can bet that somewhere Roly-Poly Martin's having a good cry and drowning his sorrows in a bucket of KFC with extra butter biscuits. He's been hoping and praying for some white media cable outlet to give him a job ever since CNN canned him. So you know he probably had a breakdown when he heard about this one. He's so desperate to get back on the air with a weekend show, a regular segment, sock puppets, anything. So whenever he hears some black news anchor getting fired from this or that network, or he hears about a new show being announced, it's a dagger in his little heart when he inevitably gets passed over. Again. Now I ask you, what kind of hard-hitting journalism is Gayle King even known for? What groundbreaking exposés has she ever uncovered? Her fiasco interview with R. Kelly seemed more like it belonged on Jerry Springer than on an actual alleged news network. R. Kelly's histrionics is the closest that she's ever come to reporting. She's a pal of Oprah Winfrey, and she ingratiated herself with Les Moonves, and that's why she's basically this legacy stooge that they still got around like some family heirloom, but she's not to be taken seriously. As for Charles Barkley, he can barely form a coherent sentence. Half of what he says is unintelligible, and all of it is unintelligent. Even the casual racists who enjoy his constant blaming of black people for our own oppression don't want to see him, that is, unless it's something NBA related. And black people don't want to see Charles Barkley at all. After this doomed-to-fail fiasco inevitably gets canceled, whomever came up with this bright idea ought to be fired, though in all likelihood, since it's CNN, they'll probably be promoted. Because while black people only get rewarded for massively overperforming, some other people get to fail upwards as their normal career trajectory. So this tells you what direction CNN's trying to go in. This is how they intend to save the network. Commentary you didn't ask for, delivered by two people you didn't want to see. Who exactly is this supposed to appeal to? Who is this meant for? Do they think that black people are going to want to watch these two? Is that supposed to be the brilliant plan? Oh, black people are so starved to see some black faces on screen. Wow, they'll just accept anybody. They'll accept anybody at all. We can just put these two stumblebums in front of the camera and we'll have ratings gold. Ridiculous as all of this is, it sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it? And there's a good reason for that. You'll probably remember that a few years ago there was talk that CNN was going to start a show with, get this, April Ryan, Bakari Sellers, Angela Rye, and Andrew Big Bussy Gillum. You remember that story, don't you? I guess CNN was waiting to see what the reaction from the public would be to that announcement, but instead of it being received as the Fantastic Four, they were panned as the Failing Four. These bootlicking Negroes may be a big hit in the break room at CNN headquarters, but outside of that, they are persona non grata. As much as these clowns have been featured on white-owned networks and radio stations, and with April Ryan making news for sparring with Trump's press secretaries, I guess someone figured they must be important to somebody. Somebody will want to see them, right? Wrong. It goes to show how the white media have become captured by their own power, and how insular and out of ideas they are. Just because their bootlicking tools are marginally well-liked around the cozy confines of CNN doesn't mean anybody else likes them. The white media still haven't accepted the fact that they can give someone a platform, but they can't give them credibility. The people who may listen to Angela Rye on the radio or who catch the occasional Bakari Sellers segment on cable aren't that numerous. And they aren't fans of those two anyway. So that nasty little rumor died without any fanfare or opposition. Nobody was disappointed or even noticed that they had been deprived of the chance to have four of the most irrelevant and incompetent talking heads in media come into their homes a few times a week. But even that wasn't the first time that CNN had done something like that. You'll probably remember that D.L. Hughley had a brief blink-and-you'll-miss-it show on CNN years and years ago. You know, they just keep on trying this same old strategy of using bootlicking Negroes who make people laugh, or who entertain them, or who disparage and attack the black community, and then when it fails, they just don't have a clue why. The white media's job, be it the white left or the white right media, is to create a bubble for a particular audience, but that bubble must lend itself to whatever the goals are of the owners of that particular news outlet. Just because CNN has had Gayle King around as their mascot, and just because Inside the NBA hasn't thrown Barkley overboard, doesn't mean that these two are actually ratings gold. They're not. People watch that Inside the NBA show mostly out of habit. And I can't think of anybody of any note who watches CBS's morning show at all. Gayle King and Charles Barkley can't draw flies, let alone viewers. But we are about to head into an election cycle, so this smells like somebody's get-out-the-vote effort. If this puke sandwich does manage to make it on air, you can bet their first week they'll have Kamala Harris on, or Karine Stank-Pierre, or in Gayle King's case, she'll probably have Oprah Winfrey on. They'll just be doing some nonsense like that, some attention-grabbing garbage like they usually do for the first week of these new shows. And should they have Kamala Harris on, you can set your watch and count the seconds until Gayle King and her do some cringe-worthy, awkward sister girl shtick. And Kamala will try to make some basketball chit-chat with Charles Barkley. She'll probably talk about some basketball game or some famous NBA player, and she'll get her facts dead wrong like she always does. I'm sure it's going to be very similar to what they tried with D.L. Hughley, though in his case it at least made sense to have a comedian as the host of that show. It was a joke after all. But that brings me to my final point. This is what the white media is trying to put on as counter-programming to the new black media. This is what they're hoping is going to draw your eyeballs and your attention. April is New Black Media Appreciation Month. And why does new black media matter? Because this is what the white media thinks you ought to have as legitimate black media. This is what they want you to think of as being your black media. Two patently unqualified shills who have spent years, if not decades, carrying water for the white media. You got one woman who is Oprah Winfrey's buddy and the other who's a basketball player. Neither one of them has a background in journalism. Neither one of them is known for news. Neither one of them is known for having an intelligent opinion about anything. See, when it comes to black people, they figure it doesn't matter who they put in front of the camera. Hell, anybody will do. After all, it's a black audience, so nobody expects intelligent discourse. That's what the white media's thinking. They're only 15 years behind the changes that the new voices of black media have been making. I mean, seriously, Charles Barkley can't even manage to say anything worthwhile about basketball. And that's a field at least that he's marginally qualified to talk about. Sure, Gale and Barkley have some name recognition, but not for anything good. This isn't news at all. It's just a big-budget white media slap in the face to black people saying, this is what we think you Negroes deserve. Well, fortunately, black folks tuned out a long time ago. In a way, I kinda hope that this actually does happen. I'm morbidly curious to see what dumpster fire this all inevitably turns out to be. Kinda like some perverted social experiment. It's like watching some slow-moving train wreck. Even though you know exactly what's going to happen, you still feel like you have no choice but to watch. Except where Gayle King and Charles Barkley are concerned, watching is the last thing I want to do. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our B1 Brigadiers. Tachina Arnold, Money Thezy, Burkett Cochrane, Justin Marcus, and Wesley Monroe. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.